So welcome to this panel about Jakarta EE. Thanks for joining us. So here we have several experts in the domain. So Ivar is E4J PMC lead. Dimitris from Red Hat is in charge of the JBoss teams. Kevin Sutter from IBM is working on MicroProfile and Jakarta EE and all that stuff. Marcus Hezele from Lightband. And Andrei from Payara and Dimitri Kornilov from Oracle, who is for the moment doing all the hard stuff to migrate everything. But we will come back to that later. And so I'm Gaël Blondel. I work for the Eclipse Foundation, and I will moderate this panel. So if you want to ask questions, maybe that would have been better to be closer to us. But okay, we will certainly hear you well enough. So the story started more than 1 year ago at Java 1 2017, when IBM, Oracle, Red Hat, Tommy Tribe, and the other Java EE supporters announced that Java EE was moving in open source under the stewardship of the Eclipse Foundation. So that's a big deal, because for so long it was really something managed under the Java community process, and the community at large was waiting for new versions, and it was maybe going a bit too slow. And so the promise of opening Java EE in what is now called Jakarta EE is to have it more agile, more open, and also new versions coming faster. So, well, we have several artifacts at the Eclipse Foundation to host all the Jakarta EE stuff. So one is the E4J top-level project, which is technically the place where we host all the open source projects that make Jakarta EE. And the other one is the Jakarta EE Working Group. So you see here all the companies who committed so far to the success of Jakarta EE. So I would say that in the strategic members you have the usual suspects, that's companies who develop and sell application servers or Java EE servers. And in participating members, you have several different kind of companies that goes from consultancy companies to other software vendors, like Pivotal is part of it too. And also it includes Mizuho, which is a bank. They are a big user of Java EE, and they want to contribute to giving their inputs about the direction of Java EE. And the community is also represented by the London Java community, for example. So where are we now? So last year at Java 1, there was the release of Oracle Glassfish 5.0. That was Java EE 8 compliant. And since then, the team with Dimitri has worked a lot to migrate everything to the Eclipse as Eclipse Foundation project. So we have the release candidates of Eclipse Glassfish 5.1 that will be released by the end of the year. So the target release date is December 14th. And it's all the source code, all the intellectual property moved in open source as Eclipse projects hosted on GitHub, and running as Java EE 8 or compliant with Java EE 8. And now we are starts the migration of the specifications from what we call Java EE to Jakarta EE specifications. So that's huge, lots of projects. everything moved to GitHub. You can follow the status of the migration on this website. Basically, 80% means that everything is operational to set up the collaboration and to have a real open source Eclipse open source project. So the Eclipse open source project is created and the code is there. And 100% is the first release has been created under the Eclipse development process. What's important is that not only the Glassfish migrates as Eclipse Glassfish, but also all the specifications become open source, and the Java EE TCKs become open source too. So you can access to the source code of the TCKs, and and we have a new specification process. So the specifications that were done under the stewardship of the Java community process will now be developed according to the Eclipse Foundation specification process. So we extended the Eclipse development process that targets open source projects. We extended it to support the collaborative creation of new specifications and to support the ratification of a specification to make it the final specification. So what you see here is that when you have a final specification, that's read-only text, and you have access to the binaries of the technical artifacts, like the annotations, and also the TCKs. And so, yeah, at the beginning of the year, we did a survey about what are the expectations of the community about JakartaEE. And I think that's the good moment for me to stop here and maybe to start getting your questions. Or first we will go through each of you and maybe have 1 minute each to tell what are your excitement, your feeling, and your expectations from JakartaEE. Ivar, you want to start?
Okay, so I'm Ivar Grimstad. I'm an individual member of the Jakarta EE Working Group. I'm in the steering committee, the marketing committee, and the specification committee. And I'm also in the PMC for E4J with a bunch of all these guys. So, yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello. There we go. My name is Kevin Sutter, and I'm with IBM. And I'm involved in Jakarta EE from the PMC perspective, the steering committee and the spec committee. And also I'm very involved with MicroProfile. And so I'm, trying to influence some of the direction of Jakarta EE by bringing in some of the successes of MicroProfile.
Hi there, I'm Dimitris Andriadis. I'm running the application server team at Red Hat. And of course, we're very excited with the prospect of Jakarta EE. We want to see it moving forward. We want to see MicroProfile influencing the standard, and would like to see it going fast.
I'm Markus Eisele, working for Lightband, Director of Developer Relations. I think I have a personal history with Java EE. Actually, I have been part of the specification group of EE7. And Lightband's interest in Jakarta EE and MicroProfile is actually to share what we learned over the last couple of years in building highly distributed microservice-driven reactive applications. There are a couple of patterns that you've heard about, CQRS, for example. Everybody's talking about event sourcing. And we want to really help bring that into the Java EE, Jakarta EE world. And that's what we're doing as much as we can.
Hello, I'm Andro Mihaly from Payara, and I'm also a member of the Eclipse MicroProfile project, and looking forward to contribute to Jakarta EE. And as a representative of Payara, we are a company and a project that started as a spin-off of Glassfish because it wasn't easy to contribute to Glassfish. So now we're looking forward to contribute more to Glassfish because it's become much easier with Eclipse Foundation.
And thank you very much for doing it, Andro. I'm Dmitry Kornilov. I'm from Oracle. I manage a team in Prague who's responsible for various Java EE now JakartaEE projects such as Metro, Eclipse Link, JSON binding, JSON processing. I'm directly involved in JakartaEE. I'm a member of E4J PMC. I'm also participating in steering committee and a little bit on the spec committee. I am also involved in moving all the source code to Jakarta EE and managing that everything is done all right and on time. Thank you.
Thanks. So, I don't know, maybe, does anybody has a question to ask to our panelists or, yeah?
How do you see the standard for MicroProfile being actually absorbed into JakartaEE standards? It will be, how do you see it?
So the question is, okay, as JakartaEE takes some transition time, people are looking more and more at MicroProfile, and the question is, how do we see MicroProfile being absorbed maybe by JakartaEE? Maybe Kevin, you want to answer?
I'll start.
Okay. Let's go.
Yeah, so we definitely see the complement. Some people say MicroProfile versus JakartaEE, and we don't see it that way. We see MicroProfile as complementing Java EE and complementing JakartaEE. Now, right now, I know we've had requests. I mean, should MicroProfile be moved to JakartaEE or EE4J as a top-level project? We don't think that JakartaEE is there yet. As Gael had mentioned earlier, we're still in the process of completing that first step of being Java EE compliant with JakartaEE. Once we get to that point and we start looking at things that are coming beyond Java EE8, then we can start looking at, okay, the contents of MicroProfile, are there pieces of it that could apply to JakartaEE? I had a presentation earlier this week. I brought up a couple of examples. One of them is like the config piece of MicroProfile. That was originally proposed as a JSR. Well, now that we're finally getting a specification process in place for JakartaEE, maybe it makes sense for that to move from the JCP over to Eclipse as a specification project. And we are discussing that with that expert group. So maybe that would be the first one that we bring over for MicroProfile. Another one that we've looked at is the type-safe REST client. You know, that's something that definitely fits in with JAX-RS. It was actually brought up as an idea for JAX-RS, but Java EE8 was too far along. And so we couldn't get it in there, so we prototyped it and produced it in MicroProfile. But I know that the JAX-RS team is interested in possibly bringing all or all part or all of MicroProfile REST client into JAX-RS. So I think it'll be a piecemeal migration. It's not going to be a wholesale that we move all of MicroProfile over. I think it will be done piece by piece. Yes.
So I know Kevin is probably going to beat me up for that one, but I like to think of the MicroProfile specifications as kind of an incubating ground. They are definitely moving at a different speed. They will always move at a different speed. There are smaller vendors involved. Instead of investing heavily into JSRs and specification processes, I think this is more about common sense and finding new bits and pieces that are required, especially for new architectural approaches, that we could easily spin in a very community-driven approach within MicroProfile. But that not necessarily means it has a place in future Java EE JakartaEE specifications, right? So understanding that major difference, that there is definitely no one-on-one migration path from both projects, and the one is probably MicroProfile is faster, it's more experimental, And yeah, let's call it incubating ground without any guarantees, right? So that gives a lot more flexibility, gives us a lot more speed, and we can actually try out things. So now it's up to you again if you really want to go with the microprofile stuff, or if you're waiting for the more mature specifications coming out of that are actually approved.
And one important aspect here is also that you can already use MicroProfile with Java EE8. Most vendors already support some of the specification, especially I think the config is more or less supported by most of them. So you can actually combine MicroProfile and Java EE today.
Yeah. And I can add something. We also need to see at what speed and pace the base JakartaEE specification evolves. There's proposals to do it like once a year, or once every 6 months, and now MicroProfile release every quarter, more or less. So we have, unless we bridge this, it will be very hard. So maybe your proposal makes sense.
Another question, maybe? Yeah.
Any plans on modularizing the GE runtime system?
Okay.
Okay,
So maybe.
Together with the MicroProfile, you get an even bigger system.
Okay, so the question is: any chance of modularizing the specification and the whole system? So,
okay, so
Dmitry, you want to go?
The mic was passed to me, so I suppose that I have to answer now, right? Basically, it's up to the community. And according to that surveys, modularization was quite a big deal. So all these issues was to be addressed. How they're going to be addressed, again, it's up to the community. So there are plans, but the work on the next version of Jakarta has not been started yet, right? Some specs started doing a little bit, right? But the overall concept is not yet defined. So I suppose that we are concentrating on releasing the first version of Glassfish first, and after that, when everything is set up, we will start working on the new version, which definitely will do something with modularization, but I can't guarantee it, right? What I can say that we also released PMC technical vision document, right? And it's published publicly. And on this document, we kind of tried to bring up our PMC vision on how the next version of Jakarta should look like. And the modularization is definitely there. And as Kevin was saying about MicroProfile, MicroProfile is incubating stuff, and in the current state, JakartaEE or Java EE8, basically the same. It's missing some basic cloud-based APIs, right? Sorry. So health check is not there, metrics is not there, config is not there. Because of this long transition, the work was not done. And this is what MicroProfile was doing. And this is really great. So I'm almost sure that the next version of Jakarta will uptake some of MicroProfile APIs and standardize them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of my favorite topics, composability of the standard. I think we need to have profiles because that's the only way really to test technologies together. But within a profile, I think we should be free for implementation to allow the composability of the platform at runtime.
Just add to that just a little bit. Within the specification committee, we have talked about these profiles. We've got, the full platform, we've got web profile, and, kind of microprofile, if you want to talk about it that way. But we want the ability to define even more profiles. And so we're treating it as kind of an iteration of a spec. So there might be another spec project that defines, I'm just going to throw out a name, but let's say cloud profile. I don't know. But, there may be other profiles, and it would contain a subset of the current technologies within Java EE or Jakarta EE. So that's one of the ideas that we've talked about.
Okay, so the question is, don't you think that the focus on microservices will slow down the development of other specs like JPA or something like that? Yeah, good.
Oh, I'll take that one because I'm the DevRel guy here, I guess. The answer is that depends on community. So it's no longer a single company. It's no longer a single individual behind individual technologies. If something is important to the community, then those specifications will evolve further. It's as simple as that is. I'm playing that ball right directly back to you.
Anybody else?
Any other
Other than
any
the
other
second
comment?
that,
Yeah.
This is a double-edged sword, because if there is no activity, a lot of community which are not really active but using, and this is the reality, are going to use alternatives. And then the specification will be really remain outdated. And that will be the dead end for them.
To me, open source always has been a two-way street, and this is what we're actively doing right now. So if somebody is not willing to give back to that community process, that specification can't survive in no way. And if there's still so many users out there that are not willing to contribute back, the specification will still not evolve, right? That's unfortunately, that is how open source works.
Yeah, and to add to that, we've already, the reason why we are at the Eclipse Foundation with Jakarta now is people have been complaining about that Oracle hasn't done it fast enough or developed the specifications. But if you look back and see actually all these excellent technologies that Oracle has provided, they've done an excellent job, and it's now we're facing a new world where we don't have this big player that does all the work for us. So we actually have to step up ourselves and do it. So it is a double-edged sword in that sense, but we also have the opportunity to step up and do it, but we have to do it. Otherwise, the specs will die, as I say.
Yeah, also, I think that, yes, maybe before you take the microphone, I think that's also, when we talk about the community, that's not every single individual. I mean, that's also other companies. I think that's also an opportunity for smaller companies like your companies, for example, to come and push your innovations to a wider audience. No?
Yeah. First, I'd like to compliment what Marcus said earlier, that maybe there was a misunderstanding. We don't expect the community to contribute everything. What is most important for us is the feedback. So we are evaluating many directions, even in separate implementations. Not everything is going to MicroProfile or JakartaEE. There's still space to try just within one product to see what the other users of that one product say about it. And we also look into other products and other frameworks. A lot of us go to conferences, talk to people, we see what's interesting. So that's one way to gather feedback, but it's also important to get feedback from people coming back to us, coming to the forums, to the mailing list, talk to us at conferences, anywhere to say, here is this functionality we'd like to use, but it's not there and nobody's talking about adding it there. So just remind us that there's something we may miss.
It's kind of natural selection. So, definitely, because specs which are old enough or mature enough, they are stable, right? They won't be evolved anymore. But if some companies we are producing some projects, and these projects are using components, and we are interested very much in evolving these components, and these components will be involved definitely. And as Ondro said, we really need feedback from the community.
And one last point, there's always the support route. So if you're really looking into something as a supported solution and you want guarantees, then you definitely need to look into companies providing that, right? So that's always your backup.
Another question? Yeah?
Once the Jakarta EE, let's say version 8 is finalized, is there any idea on the commercial releases for the other vendors? What are their plannings for the release dates?
Okay, so you mean when JakartaEE 8 will be available, how long will we have to expect to wait until we have application server supporting it? So maybe one of the vendors, yes.
Okay, I'll start. That question actually has come up at the steering committee, and we have been discussing it among the vendors. I can't give you a date for anybody. I can't give you a date for IBM, but it should be almost automatic. As soon as Jakarta EE 8 is declared and we have, ratified it, put our stamp of approval on it, from an IBM perspective, that should be relatively simple for us to say, yep, we are also certified with Jakarta EE 8. And I think the other vendors at the steering committee have all kind of raised their hand and said, yep, we're also on board with that, I think. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. I mean, technically it depends on the TCK. So if the TCK is there and fully functional, we will run it immediately, and we're actually trying to run it already. So, so that's one thing, and then the process to be finalized so you can get the stamp. So it should be soon.
And I'll add to that, an important thing there is that when the TCK is available, and the TCK is available now, so you can already start doing it. As it used to be, you had to wait for a JavaEE version to be released, and then the vendors got the TCK, and then they can start their work. But now the TCK is out there, it's open source, you can already be. So I think we will expect to have much faster releases from the vendors after the specifications are available than we are used to.
Yeah, and even during the development of specifications, the TCKs will be developed at the same time as the specifications, and they will be available both in open source. Both the specification and the TCKs will be available in open source, so everybody can also contribute.
Yeah, I would just say that, in other words, maybe some products will be compatible even before the final version is released, because we can run the TCKs and then just wait until we can say that we are compatible. But some of the versions of the implementations may be running or supporting the version that is just to come in a couple of weeks.
And actually, it's supposed to be relatively easy, because the first version of Jakarta EE is more or less the same as Java EE. It only contains some critical bug fixes which we allowed to merge. So for vendors, it will be, I can't say easy, I'm saying easier than certifying their full version of Java EE as it was before, right?
So I have a question. When I look at this screen, I see, okay, top 3 reasons or top 3 expectations, and the third one is a faster pace of innovation. And the first reason why Java EE is chosen for Java application is stability. So that's always something that I find very interesting. So maybe my question is, how do you envision the mix of innovation and stability? And maybe more concretely, will we remove some specifications, deprecate some specifications, or maybe Dimitri or Kevin or Ivar or you?
I could maybe explain from my experience working at Payara. We have some customers already that are using applications that have been there for a couple of years. So they are even using remote EJBs still, and they are migrating to Docker and to the cloud. And it's not very easy with these technologies because they stopped being developed a couple of years ago, and they have some implementation specific issues. But with the current process or the future process in Jakarta, it will be much easier to fix even these specifications if there is a need. So the promise of Jakarta is everything will be open, even the older things, because within JCP and Java EE it was quite hard to get the people back to develop something that was already put on the shelf. We would have to establish a user group, get all the people, and start the process. Now within Jakarta EE, it's much easier because everything is still open and anyone can contribute and create a release.
I do strongly believe that innovation and stability are not exactly mutually exclusive, right? So it's definitely going to take a little bit of experience finding the right pace. We all have seen a couple of experiments around Java and the Java SDK release cycles, and how that is seen in the community. I think that's why I'm personally a big fan of the MicroProfile incubation idea, as having something that is really able to move fast and innovate with an opportunity to be part of a very stable, mature, and approved standard in a later stage. I think it's not official yet in any form. I don't even know if it's been discussed, but that would be my personal favorite.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe we just need more profiles. You know, people that want to stay with the old technologies and people that want to try new things that move faster. So.
Okay.
You want more?
Oh, I think that's good. Oh, well, if any
calling MicroProfile incubation probably is not a good idea, because these microprofile are backed up by companies where you can have official support from. But if we will tell our management choosing an incubation solution to go in production, that will never happen. So I think it's not a good idea to call it incubation MicroProfile. Personal opinion.
yeah, so the question is about should we call MicroProfile an incubation or not, because maybe people don't want to deploy technologies that are in incubation. I think that the specification could be in incubation. Well, that's, yeah.
Are they really in incubation if they have official support from commercial companies?
So again, let's look at stability versus innovation, right? You can have both at the same time. So I'm not fighting for that name. I'm not saying it has ever been discussed ever. It's my personal opinion that I really like that idea of flow, that specifications could go potentially. But yeah, generally you have to choose what death you want to die, right? The innovative fast pass, or if you actually want to have stability as your number one requirement. And with an architectural background, I can only tell that you will have pros and cons for both. And there are certain customers who are willing to take a bigger risk for the bigger payback in terms of innovations. And there are customers who need a as stable as possible solution going forward for the next 15 years, right? And balancing that will probably never be solved by a specification or any committee. To me personally, again, it means a lot that there are these options and that we educate people about the options and implications behind them.
And it depends also what type of support you get from companies. I mean, just imagine everything else you use, you know. Is it backed from a standard or something, and people keep using them, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out too, because you had mentioned, well, you know, there are vendors out there that support it, you know, so it's kind of hard to call it an incubator project or it's in incubation. And I think every one of us up here would, you know, as vendors of an application server, we support both Java EE and MicroProfile. And, you know, maybe not every version of MicroProfile and every component, but, you know, there's various levels of it. And like what Marcus was saying, you do have to look at it from your company's usage and how are you interacting with the companies, the vendors that are providing the supported product, and is that sufficient for your needs? Yes.
Okay, so when you go to your boss, just don't call it incubation, call it innovation driver. Yeah. That's it. Right. So yes, we all support MicroProfile, and I believe that Jakarta EE will absorb it. No, not absorb. Take some MicroProfile implementation. Even in Oracle, we support. We have Project Helidon, which is MicroProfile compatible. So definitely it has future. So call it innovation driver.
Good point. Okay. Another question from the audience? Yes?
How will this group cope with or deal with the Java standard or JDK releases?
Okay. So, the question is, how will the group deal with JDK release cadence and stuff like that? Who wants to start?
Can I clarify the question first?
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify the question. So are you talking about it, how is Jakarta EE going to work with these multiple fast versions of the JDK, or was it meant as how are the vendors going to support it with their application servers? Or both?
Well,
I shouldn't have asked that.
So maybe somebody
good luck.
somebody for Jakarta EE. I think that maybe we are on Jakarta EE panel, so let's start with Jakarta EE.
The answer is with difficulty.
We have the topic has come up, and currently we are supporting Java EE8, which is on Java SE8, right? So that is the base that we're working out on now, and the next version of Jakarta will be Jakarta EE8, which will be based on Java EE8, and that will also be Java SE8. That is kind of the minimum version that is supported. Yeah, but when we started looking at specifications ahead, we need to look at which version should we have as a basis, as a minimum for that specification. So, but the topic will come up.
Yeah, and actually it came up at our BOF the other night too. And what we discussed is as we start moving beyond Jakarta EE8, we will have to define a minimum level of the JDK that we're going to require. We just haven't figured it out yet.
Because this morning, some in the panel they said, well, if you're going for MicroProfile and in the cloud, you should use JDK 11.
Okay. So the comment is this morning in a panel they said that if you're going for MicroProfile in the cloud, you should use JDK 11. Okay.
I really would love to understand the arguments behind that. First of all, because since Java 8... What?
It was about footprint, performance, stuff,
I think it's important to realize two different aspects. One is to support JDK8 or JDK 11. Another one is to require it. So I believe that the implementation should support ideally the latest JDK as possible. So if you use MicroProfile, you should be able to run into JDK 11, which currently we're not there yet. I think maybe some small implementations support it, but very soon we will be there. But the question is if the API, if the standards should require you to run it on JDK 11 or JDK 9, or they should also support JDK 8 if there is somebody who wants to run, let's say, MicroProfile or Jakarta EE new features on JDK 8. So the question is if we should add something that directly requires JDK 11 APIs or maybe Flow APIs from version 9, which are available there. So actually with reactive APIs now, it's more a question if we should use what's standard in JDK, but it started in JDK 9, or we should rather base on reactive streams, which are just separate API, and they are also usable with JDK 8. So that's the main difference if we want to require it or just allow using later versions of JDK.
So it's no doubt that JDK 11 is more optimized to the cloud. It's more modern, and I think eventually it will be widely supported. So I can say about our implementation, about Helidon, that we are looking at all innovation in JDK 11, and we are now deciding are we going to completely switch to JDK 11 or not? So the decision will come out, I think, next month or maybe at the beginning of the next year. So from my perspective, it's good to adopt new features, but also what Ondro said, it definitely makes sense, especially for the older stable APIs. We are coming back to stability versus innovation here, right? So it's up to specifications. If specifications really want to be innovative, right, really want to uptake really at the edge features, then yeah, they should take JDK 11, definitely. But if they're thinking about some kind of stability, some kind of customers which don't want to use JDK 11 and so on, then running on both versions is the solution.
Just one thing to add, maybe I hope I won't open a can of worms with this, but nobody mentioned the possibility of having different branches of Jakarta EE or MicroProfile supporting different versions or requiring different versions of JDKs. And we had that discussion with a MicroProfile, and we currently have a 2.0 branch or 2x branch of MicroProfile, which is based on Java EE 8, but it also means that it requires Java 8, while some features don't require it. And we used to have a version of Payara Server 4, and I think, yeah, on 4, which supported running on JDK 7. So we had to remove some features, some APIs from MicroProfile just to support the older version. So maybe if there is a need, we will create different branches and support multiple branches for various versions. So we can add new features to both, but in the newer version or newer branch, we would be allowed to use features from newer JDKs, while on the older one, we would still add new features, but only rely on older JDKs. So I'm saying that it's only a possibility. No one ever discussed that.
Yeah.
You mentioned we as in Pariah, right? Good.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well. Okay, so maybe we have 9 minutes left. So maybe each of you wants to add something about one specific topic. You are? No?
Yeah, sure.
You have the microphone. So.
Yeah, I think since I'm not representing a vendor, I'm kind of representing the community or you guys here. So I would just encourage, especially the comments about what if a specification that I need stops up, and how should I proceed? And I don't think necessarily that we or the vendors will expect the community to step up and implement something. I mean, it would be appreciated, but as Ondro said, it's about communication and tell them this is what we need and we want this. And if enough people says that, then these have the resources to implement it. So then it will be taken up and going through, and everything is open now. So you have the opportunity to join, make some commits, some pull requests, do some contributions, file some bugs, and become a committer, and then you can actually drive this innovation forward yourself. So it's just about now it's up to us and it's up to you, and we have the opportunity to actually do this.
You stole my thunder. So that's what I wanted to talk about. We've been talking about the contributions, and it doesn't mean that I think someone used the example of JPA. What if there isn't the contributions on JPA? What happens to it? It's not that we need spec contributions and implementation contributions. We just need usage. We need comments, any type of participation in the groups. And I will point out that every one of the features or components within Jakarta EE, they all have teams associated with them. There are committers on every one of these projects. And so if there is effort required because issues are getting created or there's a lot of discussion on a mailing list and something needs to be done, there are people involved and they can start moving that forward with the assistance from the community. And one other thing I just wanted to touch on, someone, I think the guy in the red shirt was asking about the JDK levels. we kind of talked a lot about the APIs and whether or not we're going to be dependent on that. Okay, that's kind of the driving force of what version of the JDK is going to be minimal. But then for the cloud environment, there is another piece of that puzzle, and that's the underlying JVM. And how applicable is the JVM that's associated with the version of JDK for your cloud and microservice environment? And, you know, there are multiple choices there. Hotspot isn't the only game in town. We also have OpenJ9. And then I'm, you know, listening to discussions this week, you know, with Graal VM and Micronaut. There's a lot of variations in the industry, so we got to watch that whole space.
Yeah, well, I pretty much agree with what's been said. I'll just say as an action item, I think the last slide points to some mailing lists. So before you go home, go there and check out and just register and see what's going on. You'll find many people there, you know, discussing everything. The community mailing list is very active. So go there and just look, you know, what happens and, you know, raise your voice.
Yeah, it's literally been historic to see something like Java EE in the open for contributions beyond one vendor's actual initiatives, right? So, and this is the community opportunity, and it doesn't necessarily mean push code. It means write documentation, write blog posts, be excited, tweet about it, make sure that people actually know what you're thinking, and this will all influence the direction in the future from every single individual of you who's interested working with this group.
Okay, it's always hard to be the last because everything been said already, right? So I can only say that I completely support what was said here. So it was always requested to open Java EE to open TCK. So it was one of the main requests from the community, and now it's done. And you can actually look at the TCK code, you can look at the all components code, you can contribute to all components code, and you can easily become a part of a spec project. So this is what community wanted, and you basically are free to participate. Just repeating again, so I think everybody said that. Just go to our mailing list, check the progress, look at the source code. We need your feedback.
I just want to give one little shout out to Tommy Tribe. I know they're not at this conference this time. I talked with David Blevins, and he said it just didn't work out for their schedules. They have been very active with both MicroProfile and Jakarta EE, and I just want to give a shout out to them that they're helping considerably. When we're talking about participation, they're out there giving presentations and conferences and blogs about all these different technologies, and they've been very helpful in that regard.
Yeah, and I think that's how we prepared this document he prepared for Code One and ECE is a good example of the fact that it's really open. That we published some questions, some topics on which we want to get feedback. And David started this initiative, and in 1 week we had 75 answers to specific questions, and some of them were obviously coming from usual suspects, including people here. But some feedback was also coming from people from the communities that were showing up for the first time. And there's no stupid question to ask, no bad comment. So really, do not hesitate. Start by subscribing to the mailing list, and start contributing. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you for joining us. Thanks.